Hello, everyone. It's Lindsay Landry, and this is the fifth call of the Awaken program. So, this week we're going to be talking all about opening to receive deep success. So, this week feels important, and also, just like we talked about last week, all of the classes that we have done to this point have been building. So all of the tools, all of the things that we've been talking about that you've been learning in this program are building to this class. So all of those things that you have been practicing have been preparing you to be able to open your system and to be able to open to receive the things that you really want and desire. So we're going to be talking about that more today, and hopefully if we have some time at the end of the call, we'll do like last time, and we'll have some space for either laser coaching or some hot seat coaching. So for now, if you want to get comfortable, we'll do a quick getting here. And so just closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. Allowing yourself to come into this moment, to arrive here. You can start to notice how your body's feeling. You can notice where your mind is, and if you need to, you can call your mental energy back. You can notice where you are emotionally today, whether you're feeling tired, overwhelmed. Maybe your heart is with some of your clients or loved ones. So just noticing where your energy is, and at the same time, just inviting it to come back. So just like the little fireflies, inviting it to come home. Yeah, and just noticing how it feels to have those pieces return back to you. And then you can imagine just rinsing. So rinsing out your energy. You can imagine having some gold energy just coming down, or maybe you have like a shower head where you can just hold it and kind of rinse off your bubble, and also rinse any places where you feel like there might be some things congested. Yeah, and then with your next couple of breaths, allow yourself to find the earth. So you might imagine it sending an umbilical cord up for you. And see if you can plug that into your root chakra without doing anything. It's doing the work for you, so it's coming with you. You don't have to find it or go search for it. And then with your breath, see if you can allow yourself to give a little bit of your energy over to the earth. So just letting it flow through your umbilical cord, through this grounding cord. Most of us here are big givers, so it's really easy for us to give to others. So just practice that, letting yourself give to the earth. And just noticing how that feels. So notice how it feels to be able to give and to be in giving energy. And then I invite you to just take a few neutral breaths. So not giving, just kind of being. And then imagine the earth wanting to send some energy up to you. So through that same umbilical cord, grounding cord, you can imagine the earth wanting to send energy up to you. And notice how that feels. You can notice how it feels in your body. Notice how your body responds. We can make a modification too and imagine having two grounding cords. So one for the earth to give to you and then one for you to be able to give to the earth. And see, if that changes anything. If it shifts anything for you. So if you're giving, can you let a little bit of that energy flow in? So most of you, just receiving felt really challenging. So see, if you're giving, can you let a little bit flow in? And then you can also see, is there anything that you can bring in to allow you to feel more comfortable or safe to have the exchange happen? So maybe having some angels. Some of you, it feels like having an idea of what that earth energy can be used for helps. So we're just getting to know our energy and how it's currently responding to the idea of giving and receiving. So just thank your system for showing you, for also keeping you safe. It's doing exactly what it's made to do. And then with your next couple of breaths, I invite you to call forth an intention for today, whatever it is that you need or desire from being here in regards to receiving and opening to receive success. Yeah, and if you could receive the smallest, external droplets, so not even information from this class, but if you could receive something in a response to this lesson, so maybe it's, a compliment from your husband, or some feedback in your business or clarity around an idea. Could be, I invite you to think of something not too big. So something that you feel like you could actually receive. Maybe a little bigger than what you're totally comfortable with. And I invite you to also call that into your attention and your awareness today. We'll play around with receiving energy. And then whenever you're ready, you can just take a few deep breaths. Come back into your body. And then you can open your eyes. So welcome once again. And today, we're going to be talking all about opening to deep success. I posted the PDF a little bit late, so it is there in the group if you haven't seen it already, and if you want to follow. And so, success is something that looks different to every person. And, what the things that we're going to be talking about today, it can also be applied to every area. So this is not specific to business. It can be used for business, but it also can be used for relationships, for health, really any area, in all areas. And so, there's a way that we can have success in one area, right? So maybe we eat healthy and we have like an amazing body or something, but like our relationship might not be going well, or our business might not be going well. Or maybe we have results in our business, right? Like we can bring in clients, we can bring in money. Maybe we have a super engaged community and like presence online where people really admire us. But if the inside of your life, so again, your relationships, your health, how you feel deep inside, if that is not feeling abundant and feeling successful, then it's really not deep success. It's more of a illusion of success. I actually had someone yesterday, one of my Reiki 2 students, share this. It was our last call, and she shared something that I want to share today because it feels, very relevant to this class. So she's been moving forward in her business. She's been working really hard the past the past year or so. And she's doing pretty well. She's done classes. She has clients, she has a following, and she's still been struggling. So she still has felt like a lot of pressure and not felt like completely full and like lit up, on the inside. And at our last call last night, she told me that she finally feels like she's at this place of a deep level of success. And basically what happened is throughout the program of, our Reiki 2 and her working her energy and whatnot, her mom actually started to make some big changes and to move through some really big fears. And so she was seeing how the rippling effect of her energy is now rippling into her family. And her thing was, it really doesn't even matter about money at this point. Like when you realize that this is what feeling good actually feels like, none of the other things really matter. And when we can get to that place, then it's also so much easier to be able to call in the external success. And that's also what happened for her. She got a complete download of the next step in her business. So she was meditating and basically her whole program came to her. But she has the feeling on the inside of like really being in it and feeling the deep level of success and being unattached externally. And then, then the outside is going to mirror that. And so that is what, we're really going to be diving into in this class. And like I said, at the beginning, all of the classes to this point have been building to this. So all of those are still important and they apply to what we're going to be talking about today. So, a deep level of success, really, it starts on the inside. It starts with getting ourselves into that place of alignment, letting ourselves, like we talked about last week, getting to the core to where you can feel and experience what's really present, and that creates the opening to let more in. So no one or nothing outside of you can bring you the deep level of success that your heart aches for. You are the only one who can claim it and give it to yourself. You are the one that you have been waiting for. And, when we make decisions in our business, that is also really prevalent, because if we are operating out of a place of lack or fear, and maybe we're doing things for other people, whether it's a coach or clients or our family, what happens is that energy is also going to ripple into what we're doing, and it's going to be harder to get results. And so, saying yes to ourselves and really operating from that core place of our core desires, it's not always easy, because everyone would have success if it was, and not just the external success, but really the deep, deep level of success. Everyone would be doing it. You wouldn't see so many people in the online world pushing and striving and hustling to try to, be successful if everyone could do it and if it was easy. So I want to talk a little bit about how do we make room for this goodness and this deep level of success. So I want to talk about how our energy works, because I think that's really important to understand how we're able to receive the deep level of success. So if you think of your energy system like a rubber band, so if you have your rubber band, on one side, on the inside of your rubber band, you have will. So you have your personal will, the thing that you really want. On the other side, you have your subconscious energy. So you have fears, old beliefs, family patterns. So that is the thing that wants to keep you safe. So if you imagine, so you have your rubber band and you have these two balls in it, right? So on the outside of your rubber band, you have the thing that you desire. So whether that's money, whether it's a relationship. So what happens is the will, right, your personal will, is going to start to move forward towards the thing that you want, your desire. Well, our fear and our old beliefs pulls us back, right? So the rubber band starts stretching. What happens when the rubber band is stretching is it starts to create ripples in the energy around us. So that might look like, us feeling things emotionally, or us manifesting things physically, where, maybe I'm going to just use business for an example. So you're starting to get excited about an offer. You really want to move towards it. You start moving towards it, and then you attract somebody that second guesses you, or they say oh, that's not a good idea. So then you start second guessing yourself. So then the fear resistance is pulling you back, right? Or maybe you have one of my clients, for example, she started to bring in some money, and then her air condition broke. So she had this thing that she ended up manifesting that's pulling her back. So then it sends her into the patterns, right? And so this is what's happening in our energy. So if we are trying to move forward really fast, our ego, fear, is going to do the same thing. So it's actually creating more resistance. And that doesn't mean that you can't get results, because you can get results that way. But what I've seen happen is it's harder to receive the results. And so you might, it's sort of like, okay, if you water a plant, this is the image that I'm getting. If you water a plant that hasn't been watered in a long time, you pour the water and the plant doesn't absorb it. Like either the water stays on the top because the dirt's so dry, or it goes straight through and then it ends up leaking out of the pot because it couldn't absorb all of the water. And that's the same thing that happens to us energetically. If our system isn't prepared, if we have this resistance happening, we can't receive what's happening. So we might be getting results, but we can't receive them because our emotions aren't caught up to that. Our fear is not caught up to that. So that could send you believing that you have to continue to work really hard. So maybe you're getting results and you're still feeling like, yeah, but this isn't good enough. Like, I need to keep moving forward because I'm not visible enough, or my Facebook group isn't big enough, or, but I didn't do X, Y, Z. And so even though you're getting the results, right, you're still pushing. Or it could also leave you in the place of feeling like you just aren't getting results. Like, you might feel like things are happening, but you just can't see them, or you can't fully receive it or comprehend it in your energy. And then the other thing that could happen is you start to manifest things outside of yourself that almost sabotage the results that you're getting. And so these are just natural coping mechanisms that our energy does when we don't have the environment to be able to receive the success that we are bringing in or that we're working towards. And this can happen, even with, it can be the big results like bringing in clients, but it also can be getting clear on your message, or feeling like you're doing a good enough job being visible. Like, I remember, really, gosh, the first couple of years of my business, I feel like I actually just moved out of this pattern, but I would be showing up and I was being consistent and I felt like I wasn't. So I would end up on connection calls and people would be telling me oh my God, Lindsay, you're so visible and you're doing all of the things and you're doing amazing and da 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 da. And I didn't feel like I was doing amazing. And so literally I would tell them what? I feel like a hot mess. No, that's not true. And finally I got to a point where I actually realized, I needed to change my perception because everyone else was seeing me as a certain way, but I wasn't seeing myself that way. So that can also happen, if we're doing things fast. It's we have to let that other part of us catch up. So I just want to see if there's any questions about that before I go on. Okay. So the key is you want to work with your system rather than against it, because when we're working against it, we might be getting the things that we want, even droplets of them, and we're not able to bring them in, or we're pushing them away. Or the other thing that happens is, I don't know why the plant images are coming up today, but I'm just going to go with it. So if you are say you are holding a plant, right? And you are running around all over, and it might be raining, and you're running around trying to catch the rain, or trying to get water for the plant. It's actually not gonna The water is not going to be able to land in it. And so the same thing happens in our energy. I think we talked about this on the grounding. If you're moving around too much, the thing that you're wanting to manifest doesn't have a place to land. So when we're in the mode of like trying to do the thing, we're trying to move forward, we're trying to get clear, we're trying to get clients, we're trying to, our system is like trying and trying and trying and trying. The thing that we want doesn't have a place to land because we're like moving around too much. So that is another thing that happens. So when you understand your system, then you can work with it. And that is whenever you're able to start to open, and also you're able to start to be able to receive. And so how our system works is it expands. So again, if you go back to the rubber band analogy, if you stretch a rubber band, it's expanding, right? And then ideally you let it go back. So you let it contract, and then you let it respirate, you let it breathe, and then you could gently pull it again and expand it again. So what happens is when you do this slowly, the rubber band is going to eventually get bigger, right? So this happens with hair ties all the time. So like, I don't know about you, but I end up using the same one for a little while. And then like before I know it, it's like too big. I have to like make too many loops. And so that's what happens with our energy. Like if we stretch it and then we let it contract and stretch it and let it contract, then it's like before we know it, it's actually bigger. It can hold more. But if we stretch it and we just keep stretching it and stretching it and stretching it, what's going to happen is it's going to like the rubber band, it's going to like fly across the room. You're going to have a lot of backlash. And then our ego can't keep up with it. So really, like there's a natural ebb and flow in receiving. So, we bring things in and then it's like we have to soak them in, right? So you have to actually soak them in. That is the contraction. So the expansion is opening. The contraction is the thing that's letting it pull in. And then you let your system breathe, and then you can continue the process. So when you understand this, when you get tired, like that is totally normal. If you feel like you are not receiving, like that is also totally normal, because if you have been trying to receive, then you've been in that expansion and your system might need to actually contract, which is where the receiving happens, in the contraction. And that also, so when we're in business and also in relationships, it's both. We we get so hard on ourselves that it's like we want to keep pushing and doing and trying to get to the thing. And when we're in that try mode, that do mode, that masculine energy, we're not in the feminine receiving. And the same thing can happen in relationships, because, if we are the giver, if we're giving and giving and giving and giving and holding space, then we're not in the receiving mode. So when you understand this and you're aware of it, then you can work with your system, which will allow you to open and to receive more. Like not only during the contraction, but then you get to the point where you can continue to receive, throughout the whole process. And the expansion and contractions start to become more of the same, versus like having a huge expansion and then a contraction, which like in the beginning of my business, it was a lot of how I operated. So I could bring in, have a really good month, and then I would totally contract, and it would take me maybe, 3, sometimes 4 weeks, to be able to respirate and breathe and rest, to where I was you know, I was almost like in a hermit shell where my heart was vulnerable, and it was hard for me even to show up and to be visible and all the things, because I needed to let my system rest. But then it gets easier. And so, you know, if you feel like you're in one of those cycles, like, just know that that's normal. You know, that's the way our energy works. And when you can honor that, it lets you go through the process a lot easier. And then also one of the things, I think I talked about it in the Facebook Live this week, but somebody asked about manifesting in regards to being where you are and giving yourself place, like permission to feel. And one of the things about manifesting is when we give ourselves permission to work with our energy, you're going to still be open to receive. So even during those times of contraction, if you're letting yourself contract, you're going to still be open to receive. But it's when we go into resisting the contraction or making it wrong, so then we're like, oh my God, I'm taking a week off. I should be working. You know, I'm not going to bring any money because I just got back from my retreat, and, you know, I should be doing more and blah, blah, blah. Then you're blocking the manifesting. But when you work with the energy, you're actually still in the flow. So any questions about that? Okay, so we will continue. Okay, so, you know, the next step is really understanding the blocks and resistance. So I was kind of feeling into this just when I saw some of your responses whenever I asked about, you know, where you are in regards to receiving. Yeah, I was feeling into this, and there's so many different layers. And what was really coming to me, even as I was, you know, writing this and just preparing for this call, is like, when we can get to the truth, like, so that can be the simplest thing, but when we can get to the truth, it like creates a grounding in our system. It creates a grounding in our energy, where with that, we can actually work with that. When we are like in a lot of story, or like we can get into the place where like we're spinning story, right? So there's like all of these different stories around stories and layers of stories. When we're in that, it's like harder to actually get to the thing. So it's going to be harder to like unravel the block. Instead, we're just going to be like peeling off layers of stories. You know, it might be like pulling off leaves or something, but like if we can just get to the branch or get to the you know, the core of the tree, then it's like so much more can be changed rather than just working with each little bitty individual thing. So I wanted to talk about some of the core beliefs that are underneath all of the things. So again, this can be used in any area. And when you start working with the core energy, when you shift one thing, you shift all things. And that's why I love energy so much, because when you start working with the core, you change, like, you know, you shift one little thing and it starts to make ripples into all things in your life. So the most common things, and this is also like, if you've ever read The Big Leap, he talks about like upper limits. So you can also think of these like as upper limit blocks as well. So the first one is feeling fundamentally flawed. And so, you know, this would be why we're not receiving or why we're not letting the deep success come to us. So it could be because you feel like something's wrong with you, that you're not lovable, you're not capable. Maybe you can't get healthy, like you're not physically able, but that underlying feeling of feeling fundamentally flawed. It might also be like that you think that you're doing something wrong. So it's like, no matter what you do, it's like you feel like you don't have the secret, like you're doing something wrong and people won't like you, or they won't resonate with what you're doing, or whatever. No matter what you do, it doesn't feel good enough. So for me, that was totally one of mine. So it's too much, not good enough, too intense, too different, all of the above. So, so then when we have this, then we just don't want to like commit, or we don't want to start. So maybe we like block off our heart, because if we open our heart, then it's like fear of it being too much, or fear of it not being good enough. Or for me, it's like too emotional, like if I fully express where I am and my feelings, it might be too overwhelming for other people, and they just won't be able to handle it. So then we like block ourselves from success and from love. I've done this in my relationship, and I've done this in my business. If I'm finally at a place where I'm pretty transparent in my business, I don't really hold back much at all. But it used to really be a thing for me, because I desired to do deep soul work with my clients. And I was afraid that, they would feel like it was too much, or too deep, or too intense. And, still when I'm working with clients one-on-one, I really like to feel them out to make sure that they're available for the work. And some of that is like, well, now it used to be personal because I didn't want to be in the situation, if somebody was really uncomfortable with my work, but now it really is more from a place of, wanting what's best for the client. So not wanting them to get in a situation where I'm going to go really deep and then they're going to like not be able to do it, or like they're going to like end up feeling worse. Like if they're not available for that or whatever. So if they're resisting it. So, when you work with your core energy, then you can open on all these levels, right? So open in relationships and open in your business to be able to receive the deep success. Now my clients love my work, now that I show all the layers. So the edge to work with this is surrender. So surrendering to yourself, surrendering to the unknown, right? Surrendering to the fear, connecting to the divine and trusting spirit. So like trusting the higher process, and then being willing to be vulnerable. So having a vulnerable heart. Because to open your heart, you have to allow yourself to be, you're putting yourself in a position where you might be hurt, or someone else might be hurt. And so that takes allowing vulnerability. And so at any time, if y'all have questions about any of these, you can use the chat and just ask. So the second is, the second block or belief is disloyalty and abandonment. So this is why we would block ourselves from success. So usually this might be really being, people that have this layer tend to really be family people. So really caring a lot about your family, caring a lot about your children, maybe even caring a ton about your tribe and your clients. And usually what happens is you end up putting other people before yourself. So you end up sacrificing yourself overgiving of yourself, focusing on other people's energy or other people's needs and neglecting yourself. And usually the reason for this is because you don't want to be a disappointment to others. You don't want to let them down. You don't want them to leave you, or you don't want to leave them. And so, you know, this can get in the way of success. It can get in the way of allowing yourself to receive. And so usually this pattern, it could be, it could show up as worthiness for you. So, you know, the edge to work is allowing yourself to be loved, allowing yourself to love yourself and to give to yourself. And so usually it's the heart, and it can also be like the sacral chakra area, which is worthiness, or even getting clear on what you do desire. Because if you're so focused on others, you might not know what you desire for yourself. And some of the other edges with this is energy exchange. And so just how we did the meditation at the beginning of the call with imagining the earth and then you giving and then also trying to bring in, that is energy exchange. So ideally it's like when you can give and you can like take in at the same time, that's exchange. What'll happen a lot of times when we have this block or pattern is you might give a ton and you feel like you aren't able to receive for what you're giving. So that can look like putting out a ton of energy in your business. So you might be giving a ton of things away for free. You might be doing a lot of work. And then at the end of the day, you feel like, you know, what you're bringing in, so your revenue isn't matching what you're putting out. Another thing that could look like is maybe you have a class or you have clients and then you end up giving a ton to your students or to your class where, you know, at the end of the thing, you might not really be getting paid much at all or receiving what you should be receiving. And so the edge to work with that is looking at how can you allow more of an energy exchange. So it might be looking at like, where are you overgiving? Like, what can you cut out? And if you're giving and giving and giving and you aren't asking for sales or you aren't allowing energy to come in, or, you know, if this is with your husband, you know, if you're the one always giving, maybe it's asking for help, letting the other person do something for you. That would, you know, be how you want to start working the energy exchange. And if you notice you have this pattern, an exercise that you could do is, you know, get a piece of paper and you could draw a line down the middle, and on one side put energy in, and then on the other side put energy out. And so you can look at all the areas that you're giving energy out. So it might be to your kids, to your husband, to your clients, to your business. And I mean, you could be more detailed than that. And then you can look at like, where are you receiving energy in, and see if you can think of, you know, what else could you add to the energy inside? Like, is there some ways that you can allow that side to grow, if that is a pattern for you? And the way, you know, so ideally, we don't need to like just erase the pattern, right? Because that is like slinging the rubber band across the room. That's not the point of this. But what the point is if we can just start stretching it, right? So start allowing yourself to receive a little bit. Then what happens is your capacity to be able to receive, or, you know, in this case with this pattern, to be able to exchange energy without being abandoned, it starts stretching. And it doesn't mean that you're never going to have that pattern again, but you're stretching the capacity to be able to hold more. Any questions about that? And it's the same thing with the first one. It's not that I'm never going to feel fundamentally flawed again. It's just I've been working and stretching my capacity to receive more and to allow myself to show up more vulnerable. Okay, great question. So what did I change in myself so that my clients are open to receive the deep work with me? So I did a ton of inner work, right? So I worked on my own fears towards being too much or allowing that deep part of myself to come forward. And I also just started talking about it. So I talked about my fears around that, not saying, not telling my Facebook group, I'm super scared to do deep work with my clients, but more so saying, this is a fear that I used to have and it still comes forward and I work on it. And so that actually allows me to connect to clients in that deeper way. So, for me, it's about doing both. So doing the inner work on myself and then allowing myself to show vulnerably externally as well. Does that answer that question? Okay, perfect. And this could also be like in relationships too. Sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable in our relationships, especially like if you aren't used to letting yourself have desires. If you're going to ask for what you want, that can be really challenging. I remember when I started to invest in my business, and me and my boyfriend, by the way, we don't even share a checking account. We have totally different checking accounts. But when I started to invest in my business, he was not on board with it. And, he just didn't think it was a good idea. He didn't see what the point of it was. And that was really challenging for me, to give myself permission to do what I desired and what I knew I needed, even though he wasn't on board. But what actually happened, since I was honoring myself after a couple of weeks, he saw how happy I was and he saw the change in me. And so then he became more supportive. And my mom actually, she just shared a story with me this weekend too. My stepdad, I've been doing holistic work since, I guess 2006 really. But my stepdad hasn't really been on board. So even when I did like herbs and supplements and all that stuff, he's never, he just kind of always rolled his eyes about it. He doesn't say too much, and then the same with the spiritual stuff. He just kind of doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't really care what we're doing or what I'm doing, but he doesn't really want to have a conversation about it. And my mom told me this weekend, she said he works outside. He has a natural job or whatever. And him and his boss were in nature. They were bird watching and they ended up seeing a fox. And so my mom looked up the spiritual meaning of fox. And she told him what it meant, and it actually was exactly what his boss was going through. And she said, my stepdad got so excited that he wanted to send the picture to his boss. And so when my mom was telling me this weekend, she was like, oh my God, can you believe it? That he's finally coming around and interested and how this all happened. And just so funny because, he for a long time wasn't really on board at all with it. And for years, years and years and years. But it's the more I don't care anymore. You know, I don't care what my family or what other people really think about my work. And my mom's at the place where, you know, she really trusts it and believes in it because she's seen it work for her. And so now that she's in her own zone, you know, it's rippling out to him. And so it's not always comfortable in the beginning when we start to claim our desires and do these things for ourselves, but it does ripple out and the energy around us does start to shift as well. So, you know, you're receiving from yourself and then you're opening to receive from other people. So with the work, you know, with clients, it's like you're receiving yourself and then you're letting your clients receive you or your tribe. And so that brings me to the third thing, which is believing that more success is a bigger burden. Yes, so this was another one of my patterns. Sometimes, again, I can sink into this still. But, you know, more success is a bigger burden. So it might put more stress on your family or the people around you. Or maybe it means more responsibility for you. So, you know, recently I had a client that she was like, you know, I have a few spots left in my coaching practice and I really want to sell them, but like I'm not selling them. And when we really started to talk about it, her fear was if she signs more clients, she won't have time for herself. And so it's a burden, right? It's like more responsibility and less payoff for herself. And so subconsciously, she's like a big no to that. You know, like when we think about it logically, we're like, yes, okay, I know I want to bring in more clients and it's great. You know, I'll have more money. But like if our subconscious, our inner child, like we talked about last time, is afraid and resisting that, then it's really hard to let it happen. And so, you know, then that is the fear that you need to work with. And also do some logical things around it, like setting boundaries, you know, so maybe that's setting boundaries in your schedule to know that you will have time for yourself because you can support yourself in that way and you get to control that. So like for me, that's the thing that I have to do. Like I've had this fear that if I deepen my success, my business will consume me, right? So like I'm not going to have space for myself. And so I actually have control over that. I can schedule time for myself. I get to make my own schedule. I get to allot what works and what doesn't work. So then, you know, when we do that, we work the layers, then we open ourselves to be able to bring in more. And this can also be, another layer around this, which I'll share is, I used to have this fear too. So like, if I open to success, not knowing what's going to come towards me. And so, I'm really great at manifesting and like sometimes to the point where, it's like too much. And so when I fully open to receive, usually like I will manifest a ton of things. Like I can fill things up super fast. But what has also happened is sometimes I'll manifest things that I don't want. And it'll make me really uncomfortable. And then my system will go into closed down mode. And so it feels like a stress or it feels like a burden, right? And so then it like becomes that opposition, like wanting to open, but like also not wanting to deal with all those things, right? And so if we have something like that in our system, it's going to keep us from being able to fully open. So identifying it is always the first step. And then getting clear, you know, so like with my clients, like how can I be more clear on who my service is for and not for, so that the people that are ready to do the work are drawn to me. Because that was, that was kind of part of the story, like people that weren't ready to take responsibility, or they wanted me to do their business for them, or those kind of things, think that energy work was like going to be their magical cure. So setting the boundaries is super, super important to allow yourself to stay open. So like reminding yourself you have a choice. You get to create the boundaries. You get to create your schedule. Also the time with your family or friends, like you get to create that as well. So you get to decide what works for that. And also like the other patterns, the other energy tools to work with this. So you want to work boundaries. So your aura, also calling your energy back is really important. And, making sure you don't have any attachments to others. So you might have to clear your energy or give other people their energy back if you're noticing, you're worried about your family or kids or whatever. Any questions about that one? Okay. And then the last one is the crime of outshining. So not wanting to outshine others, or if you are successful, like it might hurt other people, or you might be taking attention from others. So then what you do is you turn the volume down on your genius. So maybe you don't fully own it. You don't own your power. You play small. You hide behind others or supporting others. And then if you do bring in success, you might feel like you can't fully enjoy it because you feel bad. You feel guilty. You don't feel good about your relationships or your health because you're feeling bad that you're actually doing good. So, this is really letting your true self come forward and allowing yourself to meet the world as you. And, what usually happens is you realize that you have so much love and joy in your heart that when you let that come forward into the world, like people love you for that. That is who you are. And so, yeah, so, connecting to the truth of who you are and then letting that come forward is your edge for that pattern. And so, the thing is, one of my favorite quotes is, when you know and love yourself, you have everything you need to succeed. And it's so true because really, like, when you know and love yourself, you don't need anyone to approve or to validate you. And by that, when we release other people or other situations, so we don't need even our business to validate us, right? Because we know who we are, then we can actually receive. It's when we need that external validation, we actually push it away. And two, it's like when we really know ourselves and understand ourselves, then we also know others, because there's nothing that we can't be with. So it's like when we are with the part of us that is protecting ourselves from something, from success, from hurting someone, then we also know we know other people, so we can empathize with someone else that is maybe doing that to us. They're protecting themselves from us. So instead of it's like two people pushing each other away, like we can still be in the truth and be in love. And that is where the receiving happens in all areas. So with friends, family, money, and with business. And so any questions about that? So we're going to do a meditation to the meditation that I like to use around receiving. So if you want to get comfortable, you can take a few deep breaths. Maybe as you're breathing, just allow yourself to just drop into whichever of these 4 patterns you feel resonates with you the most. And you could be more than one, but maybe whatever one you feel like you're in the most now or just recently. And I invite you to just start to feel and notice where this lives in your body and in your energy system. Yeah, and letting yourself tune into, even the smallest details around it. So the way your breath is moving. The way your feet feel on the ground or the way your bottom feels on the chair. Like, does it feel a little clenched or does it feel calm? Just noticing all the little details. And what I want to do, so it's something different than what I was thinking, but this is coming forward, so we're going to go with that. What I want to do is a round of tapping with you. So you can pick whatever your pattern was, and you'll use the the label of the pattern. So like, for example, what we're going to do is forgiveness tapping. So I would say, I forgive myself for feeling fundamentally flawed. And then you could even go into like the details. So like, for believing that I'm unlovable. I forgive myself for thinking that I'm doing something wrong. I forgive myself for feeling like I'm too much. So what we're going to do is going through. So I'm going to just tell you the position points, and you can use the sheet if you want to like say your own statements to yourself, since everyone will probably have different statements. So yes. Okay, so where you'll start tapping is on this between your eyebrows. So you say, I forgive myself for, and then you can go to the side of your eye. I forgive myself for. Under your eye. Above your upper lip. Your chin. Your collarbone. Under your breast, on your ribs. Underneath your armpit. Your karate chop point. And then you can just take a few deep breaths. Let's just do a couple more. So do your forehead again. The side of your eye. Under your eye. And then the collarbone. Take a few deep breaths. Noticing how you're feeling. And then what I want to do is imagine having a golden column connecting at your crown, so above your head, coming into your head. And you can imagine the bottom of the column having, allowing it to have a faucet or some kind of mechanism that allows you to regulate the amount of energy that's going to flow through it. And so we're not even going to bring the energy in yet. But what I want to do next is imagine creating like a pipeline. So you want it to go from your crown, from your head, down into your heart. And maybe making a space for the energy to land in your heart. So you might have a container in your heart. And then you can imagine the pipe continuing down to your belly. Also making a container in your belly so that the energy can flow into the area. And then letting the pipe flow down to your womb, your sacral chakra. Again, creating a way for the energy to be able to go into your womb space, into your sacral chakra. And then letting the pipe go all the way down to your roots, your root chakra. Yeah, and letting your root chakra also connect to the earth. And so what we're going to do next is going back to the top. Just see if you can let one drop of golden energy come through your crown. So where you're regulating the flow. Just notice if you can just let one drop flow in. And also just noticing how you're feeling as you do this. So some of you, I can feel like it sort of feels like the energy you're trying to bring in is like floating outside of you, and you're having a hard time figuring out how to let it in. So just kind of notice. There's no right or wrong. Even this gives you information about yourself and about how your energy works. So like, what if you could surrender to that? So to the like, okay, it's not coming in. Like, what if you could just like be okay with that? And maybe even make a spot for this water droplet like outside of you. Like in front of your eyes, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Where it's like you could let it land maybe on like a little pad or something where you can just see it. Just notice, like being okay with that. Notice what happens. Yeah, in some of your systems, I can feel like the one drop, it almost just like dissolves, almost like a droplet hitting a hot cement. So if you're noticing that happening, see if you could just maybe turn up the volume a little bit, letting a little bit more flow in. Not going too fast, so just, we don't want to overwater the plant, you know, so just letting a little bit in, seeing what happens. Yeah, and I can feel some of you, it's sort of like a question mark of like, what do I do with this? So like once it comes in, like trying to figure out like how to manage it or like what to do with it. So like even noticing that. So it's like getting the thing that you want, being able to receive it, and then not knowing what to do with it. And my question to you is, what do you want to do with it? What would feel good? Yeah, and I can also feel like some of you, it's like receiving and then like almost feeling like you thought it would feel different. So like also just noticing that. And then my question is like, how would you desire it to feel? You know, sometimes we don't receive because we don't like the way that it feels, or we feel like the other person isn't going to do it right, or they're not going to be the right thing. But we get to decide, right? We get to decide how we want it to feel. So how do you want it to feel? What would feel good? Do you want to feel nourished? Do you want to feel inspired? You get to choose. Do you want to feel empowered? You get to choose. So I invite you just to take a few last breaths, and you can set this faucet for a speed that feels good for you. So, you know, maybe it's just letting it continue to driplet, to drop, or maybe you want to speed it up a little bit. And also, I invite you to set the intention for what you desire from this. So, is it to feel inspired? Is it to feel replenished? Is it to feel clear, confident? You get to decide. You get to request also what you want. And then you can come back here and continue to work with it. So just take a few breaths, slowly coming back to your body. Wiggling your fingers and your toes. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. So I invite you to continue to play with this meditation and also to explore, setting it for what you want. So how you desire to feel, what you desire to receive, because ultimately you're the creator. And that was a piece that I didn't really talk about that much, but sometimes we are afraid to receive because we don't know what's going to come to us, or we don't want what's going to come to us. So really getting clear on what you want and having those boundaries around that is really important for you to be open. And so we have about 10 minutes left, and I'm willing to stay a little bit longer if we have a lot of questions. But does anyone have any questions or have anything up that they're needing some support with around this topic of opening and receiving? Don't be shy. Okay, so if we don't have any questions, then we will close out for today. Next week is Memorial Day, so we will meet on Wednesday instead of Monday at the same time. And we're going to be talking about money. So more specifically about money, the energy of money. So I'll start a thread. So if any of you have any specific questions around money or any things that you've been working around money that you're wanting to go deeper into, also if anything comes up this week around what we talked about today that you're wanting to go deeper into in regards to money. I mean, relationships too, because it's really the same. But you can also share those things in the thread, and I can include that on next week's call. So I'm sending you so much love, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them in the group. I hope you have a fabulous evening.